everybody. It is December 3rd. I have had something playing around in my head for a while and created a little presentation or basically an explanation of what I think occurs, or at least occurs for me when I'm remembering. What happened was that I had a memory of a pretty awful experience, and then another awful ex months and months later, another experience associated with that same incident that was worse, and then another and another. And when I got to a certain stage, then all the parts for that incident filled in. Basically, from the moment I was woken up through the incident to these horrible, horrible, horrible things, and then the wind down from the incident. And it was the first time I got a whole complete memory. Now, granted, it didn't come in chronological order or even order of intensity or whatever, but I thought, well, how could I explain to someone else how that happened? Because I think that's the problem we all have is we get the horrible, we get the awful, then the disturbing, then the horrible, and don't really see how the whole piece comes together. I mean, at least I didn't. It was the first time it happened for me. So I sat down and let me share here. I sat down and thought, well, how could I show this? And so first what I did was it was an incident of a black mass with the satanic marriage of me. I was 4 years old. And I thought, okay, ignore the little blank circles. They just mean other parts, other incidents. I thought, well, let me label out the subconscious level or the levels of consciousness, the depth of consciousness this way, and then the progression of time left to right. Now, the first part I remembered was Riley, the person that I've labeled. He became co-conscious with me first, and he was at a -12 in intensity. So we'll go through the intensities. Here's the subconscious level, which for me I labeled -1 and -2. Repressed was -3 to -6. Um, Wounded children were -7 to 10. And then the absolutely terrorized children were -10s to -20s. And I thought, well, once I got the whole thing in all the parts and all their intensity levels, I thought, well, who presented first? That was Riley. Once I got Riley's um, trust and story and worked on TED with him, put him through all my charts and graphs, gave him existence, a new life, checked in with his emotion levels, his mental MKU, his spiritual problems, worked on him. He was relaxed enough to send me to the next memory. And you can just kind of, these labels here I'll get into in a minute. Well, next was Tallulah. So we went from -12 down to -16, an even worse memory. And I worked on her as well, same way, worked on Ted, gave her existence, a new life, checked in on her emotion levels, her, mental problems or spiritual problems, journaled, sketched, all the process that I go through. Next, she showed me Devin, who was even worse experience, the -18. Again, same process, gained his trust. And then he sent me to Atlas. Am I saying that right? Tallulah, Atlas. I'm pretty sure that's the order it came. Yes, that's right. Sorry. Then Atlas came at a -16, the same as Tallulah. So these, four pretty horrible experiences right down here in the, terrorized demonic involvement, the whole deal. What happened after Atlas? was in all of a sudden one night, I remembered how it began. I'm laying in my grandparents' house. My sisters and I had gone to bed about 8 or 9 o'clock. 4 years old, so I'm sure it was more like 7 or 8 o'clock. But about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, we were woke up, told to get our robes on, undress, be naked under our robes, walk down these dark stairs, um, get in a van. When we get to the van, we get to a river. We see all these bonfires, you know, and then bam, this awful incident happens. And then it relaxes a little bit. We get to Ezra and Dion. Things relax a little and they build again. And bam, here comes the satanic marriage part, standing up on an altar. And that was a demonic encounter. And then that relaxed a little bit. And, different things happened during this Black Mass, orgies and cannibalism. And, the intensity moved 9, 10, 9, 8, 9, 10, and then back down to the orgy, which was pretty awful. I was able to escape and hide. And because of that, it afforded me a little safety. And so the intensity relaxed. Well, through the night, I had the same level of anxiety, but once the sun came up and I wanted to try and save my mom, I had to get brave enough and the intensity built again. Built, 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 built. So I got to learn the build up to the incident and the incident itself, and then the wind down. Even though I know this isn't going down, I thought, well, how my counselor and I were going back and forth. Well, who's the guard here and who's the guard there? Because John had created a chart that helps you kind of pinpoint who's a gatekeeper, who's a guard. And I'm like, but this one was at that level and this one was at that. And I kept wanting to fit my experience into the mold that he created. And he goes, no, these are just assumptions and guesses on my part. You lived it. You experienced it. What is your experience? So that's when I sat down and I'm trying to pinpoint and outline and look at various different things. And I kind of came up with it. And so I want to show you what I learned. So I will share again, and it's what I call the path to healing. Um, how you get there, the path. So what do you've got here? You got this, all these memories buried deep, 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 deep within in your consciousness, way down there. Well, what happens? One of them escapes, because what happens? You've got all these things repressed and suppressed way down deep inside of you, but one of these little guys escapes. Well, I thought, well, okay, if this is a fortress, I was just using this as an analogy. What does every fortress have? Well, first you've got an external guard, someone that's going to stop just, any Joe Blow from just walking in this prison. And obviously there's another one here, but I didn't want to squish him in there. So you've got external guards, right? So this is an actual wounded child himself. It's someone who experienced something so horrific that you disassociated, and that part stepped in and said, I will guard you, I will protect you. This is awful, this is bad. I am now the guard for this. So okay, here's him. Well, and then what's the next thing as you go into a fortress? Again, a gatekeeper. Again, there's another one over here, but I didn't want 5,000 images and have all sorts of confusion. So you run into the gatekeeper. Again, it's a gatekeeper, just like this guy's a guard, but he is a wounded child as well. He came into being because he was protecting you. You disassociated. He came and protected you, handled business, and disassociated, and another part pops in. So, and then okay, so you've gone through the external guard, you've crossed the moat, you've gone through the gatekeeper, then you approach the guard. Now this says internal guard, which it is, but again, it doesn't really make sense to stick him here or send to the back. He disappears. So oh, geez, Louisa, sorry about that. I had to place him in front of this door, but realize that he is the guard, the internal guard, right here. Okay? So you got to get through this guy, and then another one at the door. I don't know if internal's the right word, but he's right there. And then once if you can get past him, and what happens? You're in this castle, and you're wandering around, and you've got well, what's inside of the castle? Well, this is where all the wounded children are. These are the different experiences for this one incident. You know, it may have started with him and moved to him, to him, to him, but these guys jumped in and handled the heavy stuff, right? So you get past the internal guard, and these children are all locked up, and you don't have the key. You can't get to them. You don't know what happened. You don't know the build-up, the wind-down, nothing, but the key master does. He's got a key to open all these locked cages. So you've got to go through him. Once you get through him, and you're not going through him, you're incorporating, you're integrating, you're getting to know. And once you gain the trust of each of these, he will finally give you the key so that you can open up the cages to all the children all at once. All of them. So these are all the wounded and imprisoned children, the guards, the guards, the guards. And you say to yourself, well, if I'm looking at this fortress, who are the ones that have the most ready access to be able to escape? Well, this guy's pretty close to the castle, right? So he's kind of pretty tied there. But this external guard or the gatekeeper, I mean, granted, the gatekeeper would have to push past this guy, but either one of these could escape, couldn't they? So what's happening when this child escapes? He gets your attention. He wakes you up. It's that first memory. You're going along in your life, you're doing your thing, and all of a sudden you remember this awful, horrible, terrible thing. And you're like, what is going on here? You've been woken up by this escaped child, which I have determined for me could be this guard or the gatekeeper. So, what does that look like to heal? What does it look like to get the whole picture and not just be stuck remembering this one horrible, awful thing or this one horrible, awful thing? Maybe this one has the opportunity to escape, but so far I haven't experienced that. But it's either this guy or this guy who gets my attention first for one particular incident. So I thought, well, how could I diagram this out? And I know this is very busy, but excuse me, you basically start over here. You are the survivor. You have awareness of some, surface level subconscious stuff, minus one, minus two. But what happens? A wounded child gets your attention, and different things happen. And you handle that and you move on. And here's the path to healing. This bright green line takes you through various different things and it winds you around and back and forth. So you start your process and you're moving forward in time, but what happens? Bam, you get sent backwards in time. And as you do, you start to wind up going in these circles and you're, oh my God, what's happening? So I wanted to just go over this shortly. This is a courtesy of Jon Uhler. He's my counselor. The different consciousness levels, and if you haven't seen his talks on this, I will link them in the show notes. Um, but here you are, primary responsible person, you're aware. things get a little stressful, then, subconscious parts come in and help you. Things get a little more pressurized, and these guys come in, and you'll see this on John's talk. Oops, excuse me. And at this level is where the repressed parts are, the firefighters, the one. Now, if you'll notice the 7 to 10, and for me, I've labeled the wounded kids from 10 to 20. Um, that's basically these 7 to 10s and the 10s to 20s. It's the 7 to 10 experiences that escape and get your attention. At least that's what happened for me. It wasn't until I could get past this guard and run into this guy and see the awful, terrible, horrible, horrific stuff that I could even get in the castle to talk to the keymaster to release the prisoners. So back to here. You start here. You have a wounded child. It's getting your attention with images, dreams, and you might think to yourself, oh, well, that's odd, whatever. So here he is, this wounded child, escaped wounded child at a pretty horrible experience. He wants your attention. Your life is in a place where you're safe enough or you're comfortable enough, whatever it is that's happened in your life to give you a level of safety, psychological safety, physical safety, whatever. This guy finally feels like you might be ready to help him. He comes to wake you up because you're not at his level. You don't know he's there until he comes and taps on your shoulder, right? Rings the alarm bell, says, "Wake up!" Well, I know for me, when that happened, I thought, well, with a body memory, I thought to myself, well, I must have done that thing to my knee or finger or whatever and forgot that I did it. I just have this pain here. I don't know where it's from. I mean, what are people going to do? You're going to go to the doctor. Maybe you get high. You want to forget about it. This hurts. I don't want to confront this, right? Or you have images and dreams. It's not a body memory now. You have images and dreams. You say, well, that's odd. Let me just get high and forget about it, right? Well, these are detours intentionally put in your way to take you off the path. Because what is the purpose of a part? Or even a program part, their purpose is to protect you. That's why you've disassociated, you've split. This personality doesn't know what's going on, but this one does. This is the one protecting you. And it's the one that may or may not be programmed. Oh, obviously, it's all programming because if you're in pain and people are doing stuff, you can program. But it's been repressed and pushed down. But now, hey, it's bubbling up. So it's going to try and detour you. Well, where are you going to go? You're going to go into the medical industry for, body memories. You might even go into the psychiatric industry for these weird images and dreams and oh my God, I must be crazy, whatever. Or maybe you just start taking street drugs and become addicted. Any way you go here, you're going to get lost because you're not addressing this wounded child. Now, thank goodness, most of us out there, and I'm going to assume all of you watching this, bypass that, or maybe you went through that and realized, no, this isn't the answer, and you wound up back here. This is a waypoint. You said, you know what, I'm going to trust myself and do my own investigation. How does this happen? Why does this happen? Well, the minute you do that, you started your path to healing. So back to this chart, you're right here in this area, waypoint number one. You maybe tried these industries, maybe drugs, whatever, and you say, no, I'm not going that way. I'm going this way. I'm going to trust myself and investigate. Well, where do you wind up? At waypoint number two. And what is waypoint number two? I know for me, it was like, wow, here's this path. It's all covered. I don't know what's going on, where I'm going to go. And there's, I guess, a bridge over there. What's happening? I've got body memories, images, and dreams, and so okay, maybe I'll start writing things down and sketching things. And at this point, I didn't have my charts and graphs, but I'm going to recommend later. You'll hear about that. And my counselor had me start working on TED. So that led me to actually interacting with and getting to know the external guard, these upsetting memories. Well, he is programmed to detour you. He's programmed to protect you. No, you don't want to see that. You don't want to interact with that. You don't want to go there. So it must have been movies or music or news or books might run through your. Certainly, I've seen that somewhere. There's no way I could possibly know what, skin melting off a human body looks like. No possible way. It must have been from a movie. Go back. This is the wrong way. Or you might think, no, that's not me. It couldn't be me. Let me try meditating. Let me try hypnosis. Let me try aliens. Maybe it was in an alien abduction, right? So it's a detour you off back into society's answers. Could be the psychiatric industry, the medical industry, whatever. But it's what I call being the living dead. You're eaten up by society. Again, you become lost because you're not really addressing this guard. His job is to detour you. Your job is to get to know him. Well, so that's just showing this section of the chart, what you might think in your mind and the detour. So here you are, you're at waypoint number two. Waypoint number one was when he came and woke you up. Now he's still back here. He's still trapped. He got your attention, woke you up, but here you are. How do you get past this guard? How do you get him to let you cross that moat? Well, do you think if you demand answers, he's going to let you? Heck no. He's going to use deadly force to protect. That's his purpose, is to protect you. And you might think, but those, they're all, no. In his mind, that's not you. Those are the parts. Those are the children. He's protecting them. Even though it's you can't push him. You can't make him do it. He's, no, I don't think so. I'll look at the end of my bayonet. No, this is my job. And then you say, well, okay, let me see if I can get in his face. So you might not have not so deadly force to protect. He's saying, I don't know if I can trust you. And you sit there and you think, well, okay, I'm sitting at this, maybe it's a military fortress, whatever, the fortress of memories. How can I gain this guy's trust? Maybe if I just sit here, because he never leaves. He's always present, always there, always guarding. He doesn't go to sleep. He doesn't this or that. He's always there. Well, I guess maybe I'll just always be there with him. I'll sit there with him. And you know what? Maybe he's thirsty. Maybe give him a little compassion. Maybe I just sit there and chat with him for the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 weeks and get to know him. What's your story? What did you go through? What happened? How did you feel? Your knee hurts? Okay, well, let's bang on TED for a while and get your knee to stop hurting. Or your abdomen, you having gastrointestinal problems today? Well, I know you want to maybe sit around and watch TV because it's awful, but let's go beat on TED and get rid of it. Let me make you feel better. Let me understand what you're going through. Let me validate what you're going through. Let me give you existence. You are real to me. And then maybe you hold his hand, you comfort him. Well, how do you do that? You write out his story. Maybe sketch the pictures that he's giving to you. Maybe, and this isn't a plug for you to use my material. For me, using my charts and graphs gave my parts existence. It gave them a new life. And by new life, that means he's not trapped at that guard station anymore. He gets to come live with me here in my home. I'm holding his hand and showing him around my house, giving him a tour of my house. We're beating on Ted together. He's relaxing. Well, what happens after a guard relaxes and can trust the person that would like to pass through? They let you through because you're no longer a threat. So you go from waypoint number two, the external guard, which was an upsetting experience because you've gotten to know him, you've journaled, you see all that, journals and sketches and all that. He says, okay, I'll send you through. And you wind up at waypoint number three, right here. Well, what does that look like? That's this guy, the gatekeeper. He says, well, I know you just got past him. You softened him up, and I'm kind of checking him out. And so, what does waypoint number three look like? You've gone past the external guard, you've gotten to the gatekeeper, you know you got to cross this bridge and get in there. And actually, you're at a point where you don't even know what the heck is in there, you know. You just know that you're having body memories. You know, it's a wounded child talking to you with body memories, images, and dreams. And you're journaling and sketching, and you get up to this guy. Well, what's his job? His job is to just detour you. He wants to protect those children. That's his job. That's what he does. And so what's the first thing you've got the dreams, images, body memories. What's he gonna do? He wants to detour you. So you'll have these thoughts pop up in your mind, you know, this is just too much. This is, you know, we've gone from an upsetting thing. Now this is really disturbing. It's too much. It's just too unbelievable. It's too fantastical, you know, and you'll mull it over in your mind for a while and you might discuss it with, you know, a very good friend or your husband or your wife, and you know you finally screw up the courage and you think because you're not even certain you believe it yourself, but you're like, I gotta tell somebody, you know. And so you tell this person that you really trust, and you can see their eyes getting big, or maybe they're looking at you like, wow. You know, so you know that they don't believe you. Or if they maybe they believe you, but it's just kind of way out there, and you could see that they're like now they're concerned for you. And because of their expression and their reaction, you now are questioning yourself even more. And and so you kind of walk away from there and thinking, wow. Because the way that we test our sanity is to bounce our ideas off of others. And so if others have the same opinion as we do, we think, oh, okay, great, I'm sane, everybody thinks the way I do, it's great. But when other people don't, that's when you start thinking, well, I must be crazy, I must be insane, I must be this, I must be that. You know, and on top of it, you got body memories, you know, it hurts physically, it hurts emotionally, it hurts spiritually. It's just very, very disturbing. And so what do you do? Okay, so you got the medical stuff going on, or the body memories. You might go into the medical industry and they x-ray you and they can't find anything wrong with you. So what do? They're going to give you meds. Always with the meds, heavy medications. Or if you go into the psychiatric industry, again, they're probably not going to believe you either because it's just so out there. They're going to give you heavy meds as well, psychiatric medications. And you know, and it could be because you're not sleeping and you're worried because you need to go to work and you can't sleep, and so you know, maybe they put you on sleeping pills or heavy medications or whatever it is they're going to do. And why do they do that? Because they are unaware of satanic ritual abuse. Society doesn't teach them that. They don't address it. They don't talk about it. We all know that even if we do talk about it, you've got Society itself has a detour that takes you off the path. It's the satanic panic of the 80s or the false memory syndrome foundation, the same thing that our minds do to us internally. It's just too fantastical. It's too unbelievable. No one believes me. Society does that as well. And in my opinion, it's the control mechanism of the Satanists themselves that run this planet have put those detours in place so that society won't get a clue, and so that's society's detour. So you try the medical industry, the psychiatric industry. Maybe you're trying sleeping pills that take you to cannabis, that's so you can sleep. And that might, and maybe you're still having memories, so you start drinking. And if that doesn't help, maybe you try something worse and you're doing crack or whatever and you get in trouble. Or if you're talking to a psychiatrist and you're just certain and you're just hammering away, this happened, it's real. But because they're not trained to handle it, maybe you get put into an asylum. Or if you're doing heavy drugs and get into trouble, you might wind up in jail. But any direction you go here, you're going right back into society's answers. You're the living dead and you're eaten up by society again. You've become lost because none of these people are addressing this part, this experience that you had, because no one believes it, beginning with yourself. I mean, I still go through this. I think on some memories that I know happened. I know they're real. I've processed them, but there's still parts inside of me that are like, I can't believe this is my life because I've been amnesic to it for 58 years. It's a lot to swallow. And so that's what this part does. It detours you, takes you back into society, and then society itself detours you, and you're just eaten alive. You're just eaten up and suppressed and drugged or locked up or whatever the case may be. And then there's also another direction that you might go. One of society's answers is you might decide to go to church. So, okay, well, these things are not helping me. They don't believe me, and I get this vibe that it's spiritual somehow. I don't know how. I don't know. You still don't remember the demonic stuff. And so you go, well, let me go to church. So let me see if I can find some answers through my church. So you go to church, maybe you're already familiar with everyone, except now you feel very different. Or you're new to the church and you feel very different because you got to meet all these people. So you spend the time, you get to know them, and you finally get comfortable enough and you approach the priester or the pastor or whoever it is, and you sit down and have a conversation and you talk about this stuff. And because again, in society, these people are not trained in satanic ritual abuse or MK Ultra. They have no idea how to handle it. So how is a priest or pastor or the head of your church going to handle this part? It's going to think it's demonic. It's going to think that you are possessed. And you're like, "Oh my God, there's no way I can't be possessed." If you're a Christian and you're baptized, you're like, "Well, how does that even work?" Well, what they might is you might get triggered in church by certain rituals or things going on, and this part might come up and express itself. Or as you're sitting down talking to the pastor and he starts poking and prodding, and this part gets triggered. So either you're triggered by the environment and the part expresses itself, or the people there, the pastor, or even, whatever other congregants there are, trigger this part and they're like, "Oh my God, you're possessed. You need to be, we need to do deliverance on you. We need to cast that part out." And because you're thinking, well, these people are the experts, they know what they're doing. Okay, I'll agree because I want some relief. I want some healing. I want peace. So you agree. And so now you're in this deliverance ceremony, and the part is expressing itself. And who is that part? What is that part? It had to experience something really awful. And and in its experience, it had a perpetrator coming at you and abusing you, torturing you, whatever. And let's say that perpetrator was possessed, and in order to survive, that you split and this part is born and say, I'm like, how do I survive this? How do I survive this? Okay, this crazy possessed perpetrator wants me to be this way and do these things. So I'm gonna embrace that. I'm gonna become that. I'm gonna do those things they want me to do so I can survive, so I can live this, so I can make them happy. I'm gonna embrace those qualities that you want me to embrace. I'm gonna be evil, I'm gonna be nasty, I'm gonna do awful things to other people. And so this part believes that it is just as evil and awful and terrible as the perpetrator. It embodies their qualities. And so you're in this deliverance ceremony, this part is expressing itself, and it's going to act demonic or evil or nasty or whatever it is, excuse me, that it had to embody to survive is being expressed in this deliverance procedure. And the congregants are freaked out. And so they're saying, we cast you out. We're delivering you. You were cast out. Go away. And they're using all this religious, terminology and phraseology. And you get the Bible out. And so the part's being triggered by the Bible, probably. And ultimately, eventually, it gets exhausted. It becomes exhausted and goes away. And the people in the deliverance ceremony think, oh, wow, we did it. It's gone. And here's our amnesic friend back. And time might go on and you think, oh yeah, I've been helped, I've been healed, I was delivered. And the only thing that happened was that part got suppressed even deeper. And if it didn't get suppressed, it did get suppressed even deeper, but because you're in that ceremony, the part's looking for help. It's now getting overwhelmed with yet another experience. That part may split again to become exactly what those people in the deliverance ceremony wants it to be. It's embodying what it perceives as yet another perpetrator. Even though you think you're going there for help, it is being abused. It's not being helped, it's being abused. And so it might split again. And so now you have yet another part that reinforces your amnesic side. Think, oh, I'm healed, I'm delivered, I'm peaceful. And so time goes on a little and you go back to church and things work out. But guess what? This guy's really pissed off now. And every time you go to church and you're amnesic and you're thinking everything's good, he's ticked off because he went there for help and these people just shoved him back down, didn't help him, invalidated him, abused him. See, and so you're going through these same ceremonies that triggered him for the first time, and now he's getting triggered again, along with the part that got delivered that's now in existence. So the people there, you're talking to the pastor again, or maybe it just gets triggered, but either way, the part's coming up again, except now it's not just one part, it could be two or three. And maybe there's other parts from other experiences that got triggered within the deliverance ceremony. And now instead of there being one part asking for help that has these negative, ugly, demonic qualities, now you might have four or five or seven. And so now they want to do a deliverance yet again instead of dealing with one part. Now they're doing seven. They're casting out seven demons. Tell me your name. We cast you out in the name of Jesus, etc., etc., etc. And again, everybody's being re-traumatized and shoved down. And your amnesic side of yourself is thinking you're being helped. So I get you're just eaten up by society's answers because they are not educated in this process. And so, what do you need to do to help this part? Is to not trust yourself, journal and sketch and find the right counselor an SRA or MKU, a counselor that works with people of satanic ritual abuse and MK Ultra and severe, horrific, satanic abuse. You can't go to the average counselor. You can't go into the medical industry. I mean, and I'm not advocating. I mean, obviously, if you have a pain or something, you might have arthritis, go to the doctor. If it's real, they can help you with that. Um, but it's not addressing the psychological, spiritual, and mental issues. And again, they might not even find anything medically wrong with you. So what do? You as an individual have to address this part or find a counselor that understands SRA, understands parts and internal family systems and address this part, get to know this part so that it can heal, it can relax and heal, and you can move forward into the castle. I don't know. I have a job to do. And I don't trust you. Just don't trust you. Not gonna let you through. Well, what is he gonna do? Do you yell at him? Do you do you scream at him? No, you give him some water. He's tired and hot and standing there for God knows how many years he's been alone. Nobody to talk to, trapped in his prison. The gatekeeper prison right there, you know. So get to know him. Sit with him for a week or two or three or a month. Get to know him. Talk to him. Write out his story. Sketch the pictures he wants to show you. Chart him out. Put him in your graphs. And now, not only does the external gatekeeper, he's not the only one in this new co-conscious land. Well, this gatekeeper is now starting to become co-conscious, isn't he? Because he's working on Ted. He's releasing his rage and frustration. He's working out his body issues. His story has been told. He's shown you the images. You use your compassion, your understanding, you validate them and give them existence, make them real. And what happens then? Well, he lets his guard down, doesn't he? And he lets you pass by. So now you've gone through waypoint one, waypoint three, and he says, okay, you can enter the fortress right here. You can go inside. So we're not looking at the outside anymore. Now we're going to look at the inside of this thing. And as upsetting as this was, and as disturbing as this level was, I understand how you could have back off. Because this guy's got some horrifying stuff to show you. That's when this guy pops his head and says, well, these two guys trust you. So I'm going to test you. I'm going to give you one of my memories. It's pretty darn horrifying. And when it pops up, and because this is at a level that's higher than 10, you're at 11 to 14 now, it's pretty nasty. Well, his job is to protect. No, 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 you're not coming through. I was created to protect. So he's going to detour you off. Well, what does he say? You walk in and you're like, holy crapola, what's going on in here? We got fires happening, demons, pictures of demons, it's a hall of horrors, my goodness. You know, Jesus is there too, but there's so much going on. People tend to not notice him, right? But he's there. The light is coming through the window. So, again, how do you gain the internal guard with these horrifying, horrifying, horrifying things? How do you gain his trust? Ask him questions. Write down his story. Sketch out the images he wants you to see. Put them in your charts and graphs. Give them existence. Give him a new life. Destroy his prison. Check in on his emotional levels. work on Ted because he's got thumbs that have been tortured, or he's got jaw issues from his torture, whatever. You're getting to know him. Well, what's he going to do? He's going to say, oh, no way. I don't believe in demons or MK. There's no way. Don't believe it. Doesn't exist. Not me. Uh-uh. That's what he's going to tell you. No, 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 no. And he's like, in Jesus? Ha, no way. Who am I that Jesus would be in an experience with me? Who am I that Jesus would save me? I'm not worthy. I don't believe it. I just don't believe in Jesus. That is the distraction. That is the detour to send you back out into society, the medical industry to handle the body stuff, or the psychiatric industry to handle the images and all that stuff. You might do street drugs, wind up in jail or an asylum, whatever. But that's his job, is to detour you because he is there to protect. No, 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 no. You don't get to go in here. You might be seeing this now, and the other two guards might have let you through, but no way. No, 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 no. Again, how do you get through him to get to this doorway to the next level, the next waypoint? You just get to know him. Oops, shoot. I think you just get to know him. Again, the same way. He's parched, give him some water. He's lonely and sad, hold his hand. Ask him his story. Write it down. Be interested. Sketch out the images he shows you. Or give him existence, a new life. Do you have body issues? Do you have mental MKU problems going on or experiences? What are your spiritual issues? Do you think that God abandoned you? Tell me. I want to know. Over the days and weeks and months, you get to know him. He relaxes. He trusts you. He says, well, those other two guys trusted you. And now that I've spent a couple, 3 months with you, or a couple, 3 weeks, whatever the case may be, you really aren't so bad. And I kind of like hanging out in this environment rather than my prison. So, okay, I think I'll let you through. You've worked out my frustrations on Ted. You can go through. So he lets you into what I call the Hall of Horrors. Well, actually, you've walked through. This is the Hall of Horrors. He lets you through, and you walk through. The internal guard let you through. You gained his trust. Now you're in the Hall of Horrors, and there's not really a guard here anymore. It's just how brave are you going to be to keep advancing, because a -11, -12, -14 is pretty darn intense for a little child. And also, it was for me just looking at it, remembering it. This guy is telling you, are you sure? Because there's this torture that happened. Now we're from the Hall of Horrors, where you might have seen some pretty horrible things, but now you're in the Chamber of Horrors. You've got the demons here, you've got MK Ultra going on, you've got torture, 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 torture. And you've got to walk by and look at it. And so, what does that look like? That again, there's no detours here because he's already tested you. You already know, okay, there's demonic crap going on. You may or may not recognize that Jesus is there, but this happened, right? So that's where this comes in. When you start walking through the Chamber of Horrors, for me, this was the real shock and horror, was going from a third person experience turning into a first person experience, seeing these guys over you doing their crap, doing their stuff. You're saying, oh my God, it's me, it's me, it's me. the Hall of Horrors into the Chamber of Horrors. Well, what does that look like? Well, this is where you literally walk through in your memories those experiences. This might be a minus 15, minus 16, 17, 18. You know, his feet are being burned out of fire, and I'm not really sure what's going on with this guy with the pointy object here, but it's got something to do with his feet. Pretty terrifying. And this guy here is being waterboarded. And this guy here, granted, you got three different people, maybe people you love and know, but they're helping to torture you. Okay, so you got to confront that. And this is a little section of where forced confession, or maybe you're having to sign documents where you commit to being a Satanist and promise to do whatever, right? And that, or get tortured or both. But you finally get through this and you're like, holy crap, I had to go through all that to get to the keymaster. Well, who's the keymaster? He's another wounded child. Because he has to stand here all day long and look at this stuff. And you're journaling and you're sketching and you're charting them out in the age and intensity. You're doing graphs, you're working on TED. And what happens is as you're doing this, the keymaster starts to relax. He's got body memory images and dreams. I suppose I should have maybe put this stuff down here, but you've got to go through all this, which will trigger the body memories, images, and dreams to get to the keymaster, the doorway out of here. Because this is horrendous. It's horrifying. It's painful. It's insanity. It drives insanity, right? Or it might even drive you to suicide. And I'm not saying as you remember this, you're going to get insane or commit suicide, but these could be the parts within you that feel as though they're going insane, feel as though I'd rather die than go through this, right? So you journal and sketch, work on TED, journal, sketch, work on TED, and you will get to the key master. Well, and oh, you know what? I guess I have this in the wrong order. But again, you've gone through here, you've seen all that horribleness. So I think I'm gonna actually move that way. So again, what do you do with the keymaster? Give him a little water, you know, hold his hand, give him some compassion, understanding, validation, give him existence. You're gonna talk to him, you're gonna write his story out. You're going to sketch his images, chart him, graph him, give him a new life, destroy his prison, work on Ted, release his rage, fear, despair, and he's going to relax. And at a certain point, he's going to let you through to the next waypoint, number 6. Well, what is this? You're out of the Hall of Horrors. What's this? Could there possibly be more? Well, yeah, this is instead of the fortress of horror, now you're walking into the actual prison. You're actually walking through this prison and seeing all these imprisoned children, the wounded and imprisoned children. This guy let you go through this guy, this guy, this guy. Well, what does that look like? What does that look like? Well, this is where you get to see all the parts for the incident, the entire complete memory, each part, every last thing, even this, weird looking face rock thing here. You'll see the build up to the incident, the threes to the nines, and then the wind down from the incident 9 down to 3. You may have some more body memories, dreams, images, wounded children, but now it's not that, you know, uh, upsetting, disturbing, horrifying, shock and awe. Now it's, ah, Well, that's how it started. She woke me up at 11 o'clock at night. We went down the stairs into the van, and you start putting the puzzle pieces together. You'll get the context for the entire incident. You'll understand what was going on. You'll get the full memory from the beginning to the end. And you'll go, ah, I get it now. But the only way to get there is to go through the upsetting, the disturbing, the demonic MK Ultra to the keymaster. And once you get to know the keymaster, he says, okay, I'll let you have the kids. Okay. Well, what happens after that? So you're out of the Chamber of Horrors, the fortress, you go into the prison, you get to see the build up to the event, the wind down to the event, and now, since you get the context, you understand it, you have a full memory, full, complete memory, which started off as just one upsetting thing. Now you see the whole thing. And that's where you'll start the grief and loss process. So that takes you here. Your life is normal, anticipated, predictable, manageable. And Jon Uhler, please forgive me if I butcher this. I'm going to try to not fly through it. Um, But you're going to have that initial shock and denial and go through those stages. You're going to have anger, bargaining, helplessness, go into survival mode, the dark night of the soul, depression, hopelessness, despair. For me, all of these steps are walking through the Hall of Horrors and the Chamber of Horrors because it's shock and awe. And you don't want to admit it. You're like, who could have possibly? Well, okay, maybe I don't want to make, you realize how helpless you were, that you had to survive. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That's what that Chamber of Horrors is. That's what we went through. We walked through the shadow of death and we made it out. The hopelessness, the despair, the wrestling with God. Well, how could it possibly? And then you realize, well, wait a minute. How could I have hidden from all those people at that black mass? I've told y'all the story. It's a black mass and an orgy, and I wind up hiding on a rock the whole night long, watching the thing from a distance. God said, don't move, don't breathe, don't sneeze, pee your pants if you just don't move. Well, that was God telling me what to do. God covered me, God shrouded me, God gave me the window of opportunity. God was there. God helped me. And I'm going to wager He's done the same for all of you. So, this is the wrestling with the God question. And finally realizing he was there. Because if he wasn't, the window of opportunity wouldn't have been there. I may have given myself away. This, that, whatever. God was there. You survived. You made it. We made it out and through. We made it through and out because we're here now. And then there's that process back up. Well, the willingness to act as if, okay, well, yeah, I've gone through that experience and still here. I'm good. I remember the whole thing. I'm not confused by it anymore. Wow, okay. You have the honesty. You acknowledge it happened. You have the acceptance. You now have all your parts for that one incident. And for me, you saw how many there were. What was there, like 15 or 20? Acceptance of all of them, each moment of that thing, of that incident, and they've risked, they've hoped, they've trusted you. And now they're releasing it and saying, wow, we don't have to be in our prison anymore. We don't have to hide. We don't have to protect. We don't have to be on guard. We don't have to be in despair. The tears and the the terror and the rage has been expended on Ted. Whew. And I know this says rest in peace. It's not that you're burying that incident. That's what did happen. What's happening now is you're like, wow, holy cow. I can be here in my present life, have that horrific memory, but it doesn't control me. The parts don't come up and take over, and I get confused as to why I behave strangely. Now I understand. They might have a trigger and get anxious, but I'm going to sense it. And because they're co-conscious with me, they're going to tell me about it. And I'm going to listen. And we're going to work it out. We're going to go hit Ted. We might do a little journaling. But the parts are saying, wow, we got sunshines and rainbows. This is awesome. We're not stuck in that fortress anymore. You go through the grief and loss process, and they start to get their hopes and dreams. They do, along with you, because they've been trapped in a prison for me 55 years, 45, 50, so, all those years isolated in a little prison alone, terrified and despair, whatever. But now, wow, I get to hang out at this intensity level of nothing. And I have all these friends, buddies, and pals because it's not just me here. I got all these guys from just my incident. And check it out, they had an incident too. And now we can all chit chat and talk with each other and go, really? I didn't know that. Yeah, I had that happen too. And oh my God, can you believe it? They all get to know each other. They get to talk with each other. They get to rub elbows. They get to learn from each other and help each other, right? Whether it's two of them or 20 of them or 200 of them, they all start helping each other because they're not in isolated cages anymore. And their hopes and dreams come back. And their hopes and dreams are yours. Things that you would have never imagined that you could have or do or say, it's there. Something you want to create, something to create for your life, it's there. You get to have your hopes and dreams. And I hope your hopes and dreams aren't about being a millionaire and having tons of money, which I don't think any of us would ever want, because those people with that kind of money and power are not good people. But this is where the resolution comes in. You're fully conscious of one incident, and now you're awake to that one incident. You will never forget it again, ever, ever, ever. I will never forget this incident from start to finish. I might forget one of the 20 or 30 names of a part. I might forget the intensity level, but that's okay because they're not at that intensity level anymore. They've gone from a -14 or a -4 or a -9. Wow, I think I'm at a -2 now. And I might get startled, but it's okay because I know I'm here. I'm not there anymore. And it's fine. I'm gonna hit Ted a few times and let that go too. They get to have their hopes and dreams, and so do you. So this is the path to healing. You'll start off moving forward. And as you all know, you go backwards in time and you get all these little loops and twists and turns, and you got to go through all these ugly things first before they let you see the whole thing. And then you can grieve it, let it go, and have that healing for those parts. And what's funny is as you're working with, say, this is one incident, right? You got all these different castles. Each incident has its own castle, its own castle, you know? This external guard escapes. He feels safe and secure. And this guy over here says, well, wait a minute. I want to go get your attention because I want to be like him. And then this guy says, well, me too. And this guy says, me too. So you might have four different intense parts coming at you at once. And it's a lot. All I can say is journal, 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 sketch, 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 and beat the snot out of Ted. Beat the snot out of him. Cry when you need to cry, when that part needs to be held. Put a heart to your pillow or your pet to your heart and just love them. As you're loving your pet or your animal, imagine it's that part and let them feel your love. Let them feel you give them your love. As they let their guards down, you go to the next level, the next level, and the next level. And it's a lot to keep track of, and that's why I made the charts and the graphs. So, and each time, give them some water. Oops. Hold their hand. Do the work. Yeah, it's a lot, but do it. All of it. And, so what's the journaling, sketching, and charts graph? All of you know what a journal is. New part is, it was fitting. His new name's Walter. I put that in my PowerPoint. Sketches. We all have sketches. Put them in your parts list. List them out. These different color zones mean one incident. So this one incident had 6 parts. You see the build up to the incident and the wind down. Same thing here with this. Oops, shoot, sorry. With this part, a build up, a little break, build, 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 wind down. Oh, built up again, wind down. Because you have to come from home or wherever you're resting, your front personality is, and get back to your front personality. There's a build up. There might be some, ups and downs along the way, but at some point they got to bring you back down, send you home, and send you to school, your front personality. Make a parts map. Mine just happened to be circles, with the cube things going on the sides. This evolved so many times I can't even count. Yours might start off with squares that turn into circles. It might be 5-pointed stars, it might be 6-pointed stars, it might be Rubik's Cube, whatever you are drawn to. I think one woman used John was telling me about one of his clients used it in a form of an apartment complex. She had the different people in different apartments at different levels. So whatever you come up with, that's your map. And they're all going to be uniquely different. You know, Give them an old picture. This was me getting fitted to be put in a deprivation tank. They put this plastic crap on me, and the only thing was a hole in my mouth so I could breathe. Give him a bio page, his name, his impact, his age, the year, location, the purpose for that part. And then say, would you like a new name? Would you like a new picture? And give it to them. They don't want to think of themselves as this anymore. They might feel this way. They might not have gained your trust yet, or you may not have gained their trust yet, but they're like, you know what? Look what she did for me. This is what I look like now. I know I feel like this still, but this is awesome. I can think about myself like this, and I like it. And she destroyed my prison the other night too, so I don't even have to live there. I can live here in this cool house with her. You know what I mean? Give them existence, give them a new life. The bio page, and then I put their journal entries underneath. You know, Put them on an emotional impact graph, their age, their impact. Each one of these is a different part. This dotted blue line indicates one incident. And they go, wow, I'm not isolated in my own little cage over here. You were there and you were there and you were there. All of us were there and none of us knew each other. Are you kidding me? And now look at it. Wow, we're all friends. We're buddies. We're pals. We get to rub elbows. We can share an apartment if we want. We can all, let's us live in this eight bedroom log cabin that she made. Or one of them might say, you know what, that's cool, but I'd like to get to know this guy over here. And they go, yeah, let's rub elbows. Let's get to know each other. Because now we're co-conscious. We're all hanging out in the same place. We know, we're all growing, we're learning, we're hanging out. The emotional impact graph just lets them see there were others with you and you didn't know it. You were in your own little isolated cage. But now you do. Imagine realizing you were in prison thinking you were alone for 50 years and I'm not. I'm right here. You mean they lied to me? What? I got all these friends, buddies, and pals. That's awesome. Makes them feel good. And look at Diana's. What's my consciousness level? What are my personality qualities? Do I sabotage? Do I harm myself? Am I robotic? Am I art? And it's not even am I. When they first arise, you go through this over time. These descriptors won't apply to them anymore because they're not there. They are co-conscious. They're not trapped in their prison and compartmentalizing their pain. They're giving you their body memory. You're working it out. Hey, guess what? I don't have to compartmentalize it anymore. So this is their original place and time. And the fact that you took the time to find out and work with them, they just can't even thank you enough because they've been alone and isolated all that time. And for you to embrace them, give them friends, give them a new name, give them a new way of thinking about themselves, all this goes away. Self-sabotage goes away. You're not robotic and questioning anymore because you're co-conscious of how much evil there is out there and how people will fool and program you. You know what? I've seen that before, and I'm not falling for your crap. Your parts will do that for you. They don't need to, they're not resistant looking for escape anymore because they're hanging out with you and 200 other people that are all badasses together, right? That all live inside of you. That's what that does. And then you're checking in on their emotional levels. Okay, in June we were fearful. By August, the fear was still there, but and I'm pissed off because now I know what happened. I've been talking to her and I've been talking to all the other guys, and I'm for this part, her fear went away and anger came up. And then by October, the anger went even lower from working on Ted, and they started finding peace and happiness. And I will say this, there are some parts, simply by giving them a new picture and a new name and destroying their prison gives them peace, a peace at a level one, just peace, a peace that they've never had before. Working on Ted, can't st I made this huge, its homepage, because this releases so much. You're going to give them existence. Do they have parts, names? Are they on the charts? You're going to give them new life. They have a picture, name, clothes, tour. Have you destroyed their prison? Do they have a new purpose? Now, they don't, all my parts don't have a new purpose, but the ones who thought of one are recorded. Some of them are now baptized, and I do it in my mind in Lake City. Jesus comes and baptizes my parts, and I'm there present with them. Body issues. I know who has neck problems, throat problems, arms, wrists, ankles. And when those parts hurt, I go work on TED. MK Ultra or mental issues. I must say that every single part has issue with symbols. Um, well, anyway, almost every single this sleep deprivation because we were all kept up late at night, concentration, exertion, exhaustion. Probably should have selected a different page where there's more, but you get the point. They just, the fact that you're paying attention and you know what their particular issues are, they just are like, nobody's ever asked me, nobody's ever wanted to know. I've just am sitting here suffering all by myself and nobody cares. Well, guess what? You care. You want to know that they didn't get enough sleep. So guess what? Win and Wiley and Rio and Rivka and Ria, we're going to make sure we go to bed on time and we're going to sleep in and you're going to become well rested. They're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, you get to sleep. So just checking in with them is enough. And then spiritual issues. This is what I was going to say before, was every single part that I have, all, I would say 99%, have issue with trigger words and phrases. And this isn't necessarily spiritual trigger, just trigger words and phrases and symbols. Every single one. And most of them have issues with rules, obligations, and ordinances because you gotta keep quiet. You can't talk to anybody. This, that, this, that. Rules, following rules, and we all follow rules, don't we? Well, so I'm just saying some of them have different issues, and the mere fact that you care enough to find out means the world to them. It means the world to them. So journal, sketch. If you don't want to use my charts, make one of your own. You know what I mean? And graphs. I'm just saying they're here, they're available. It'll save you hours and hours and hours of time setting them up. You might think of things I didn't, so add them in, take out what doesn't apply to you. But this I think is the biggest piece of the pie. Releasing the rage, because rage is underneath sadness and rage is underneath terror. There's the sadness and the terror. I won't say that they're masking the anger, but it's just the layers of stuff. And if you can get at that anger and that rage and release it, this process speeds up. This process speeds up. So God bless you, Jon Uhler, for creating, or not creating, but telling me about that. And it's not a fortress anymore. It is. Now I know what pages I need to add. You go from the fortress to the hopes and dreams, being awake, fully conscious of each and every single incident that happened to you. And what I've discovered as more and more guardians and more gatekeepers relax and let you through, it triggers other guardians and gatekeepers. And so you went from two guardians and gatekeepers to now you got four. And those four might turn into six or eight. And maybe the first guardians and gatekeepers that came through, you need a little more time, but these guys that came second, they're kind of zipping along. You know, maybe incident wasn't as bad. But the more trust you can get, the more trust you can earn of them, the more you listen to their story, the more you release the rage, the more will come up. And that's how I can say to you, "Yeah, I had 15 parts pop up yesterday." You know? So it works for me, and I hope that it works for you. So that is the presentation in a nutshell. Not perfectly smooth, but I rehearsed this 4 or 5 times in my head, and I thought, I might as well just give it a shot on video. I actually did about 2 weeks ago, but I went through it so fast it was kind of silly. And then after that, let me add this and add that. So the first official presentation, here it is. So I hope this is helpful. I know it has been for me. It kickstarts the process. It moves it along because I don't want to be in therapy for 20 years. It's just not the way. And this we can undo this. We can undo this, and we are undoing this. And I just keep thinking about imagine all of us. Let's say there's 100,000 of us in America alone. Start this process today, and in 2 years, we all have our full, complete memory, reclaim our power, reclaim our sovereignty. There's no more fear and despair holding us back. Our creative imaginations start exploding and expanding. We work together, elbow to elbow, in the same way that our parts are getting to know each other and learn each other and are healing and getting their hopes and dreams. Imagine what 10,000 of us or 100,000 of us could do together in this world to help this world and stop it all. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this. That's my dream. But we've got to get there. We've got to empty out every single prison that there is, reclaim it as our own, as ourselves. I don't know that that's integration. But I don't want my parts to retire. I don't want them integrating and disappearing. I want them all right here. I want them all active. I want the feedback from all of them. I want the skills and abilities and the senses and the street smarts and the strength. I want all of it available to me consciously for the rest of my life. I'm not going to hypnotize it away. I'm not going to meditate it away. I'm not going to integrate it and forget about them. No, I want them all right here, right now, with me, because they are badasses. And I want to be, I guess, the CEO of the badasses, because yes, ultimately we all are one individual, but got 445 parts now. It's exciting. I used to think it was, oh my God, it's overwhelming. But that's because I was in the part where I was approaching the Hall of Horrors and the Chamber of Horrors. Once you can get through that for an incident, and I'm not saying I'm completely through all of them, but for quite a few incidents, and get into that prison where you can see the build up, the wind down, and go through the grief and loss process. It's pretty cool. And the more parts wind up over there, the more the other prisoners want out. They start shaking the bars. They want out. They want freedom. They want to be with you, love you, be loved, give love, and help the other prisoners on the planet. So that's, I guess, my purpose, our purpose, all my parts. I say, hi, everybody. This is what we want to do. So here we are. So I love you all. God bless you. It's my sincerest wish this helps you, works for you as well as it has for me. Over 400 parts in a year. Lots of memories uncovered. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I've had days where I've been bounced off the wall, but you know what? Something's working. And I want everyone to have access to this. So, anyway, love you all. Have a great day, great week. And I will see you next time. Bye.